This happened a few months ago. I was 35 and trying to gather inspiration for my next novel by staying in different Airbnbs across the country. I picked this renovated Victorian house in a small coastal town because it looked charming and full of character. The neighborhood was quiet, with cobblestone streets and overgrown gardens leading to a foggy beach. I thought it would be the perfect place to write and immerse myself in the local culture. I've never stopped thinking about it since. On my second night, I woke to a faint sound. It was soft, like a child humming a lullaby. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. The house was old, full of creaks and groans. I shook it off and went back to sleep. The next day, as I was rummaging through the attic, I found something strange. It was an antique music box covered in dust. I thought it looked out of place, but I was curious and took it back to my room. That night, the humming returned, louder this time. It was mixed with soft footsteps in the hallway. I got out of bed and walked to the door. I stood there for a moment, listening. My heart raced. I opened the door. The hallway was empty. I checked my phone, but it was just me. I dismissed it again, telling myself it was an old house playing tricks. But I couldn't shake the feeling something was off. The next day, I noticed some small items missing from my belongings. A pen, a book, nothing major, but I felt uneasy. Then I checked my phone. There were strange photographs of children. I didn't take them. I felt cold when I stared at their faces. They were unfamiliar. Was someone else in the house taking pictures of me? I decided to confront the host in the morning. I thought maybe I had missed something in the description. I knocked on the door of the main house, but got no response. I went back to my place, feeling increasingly anxious. As the nights passed, the lullabies never stopped. They filled the quiet spaces when I tried to work. I could almost feel someone watching me. Each door creak made me jump. I started to dread bedtime. On my last night, I was determined to stay awake. I sat in the living room with the lights on, hoping for sleep to come naturally. Suddenly, I heard footsteps again. They were louder this time, moving closer. I gripped my chair, heart racing. I peered around the corner, but it was dark. Then I heard a child's voice, soft but clear. "Come play with us." I froze. I turned to the door, but it was open. The darkness beyond felt alive. And suddenly I asked, "Who are you?" But when I looked back, no one was there. Just the faintest echo of a lullaby. I woke up in a cold sweat. The thick silence in the house felt more oppressive than ever. I glanced at the clock. It was just past 3 in the morning. My heart raced as I tried to shake off the feeling of dread. I needed answers. I couldn't keep waiting for something to happen. I decided to search the attic again for any clues. As I climbed back up the creaky steps, I struggled to percolate through my foggy memory. There had to be something more about the music box. Maybe there was a note or something hidden underneath it. When I reached the dim light of the attic, the dust motes danced around like lost memories. I sweated slightly, fully aware I was alone. The music box sat in its old glory, untouched since I'd found it. I picked it up again, running my fingers over the delicate carvings. A chill ran down my spine. I tried to remember the tune that played when I opened it. The memory slipped through my fingers. I felt a pull to open it again, to hear the haunting melody that had plagued my nights. The moment I lifted the lid, the soft tune trickled out and my skin prickled. I didn't remember winding it up, but there it was, the same lullaby. Suddenly, the noises I had dismissed the past few days became clearer, like someone was inching closer to me. My breath caught in my throat as I set the box down and listened. That's when I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of movement by the window. My heart dropped. I moved closer, heart in my throat, and peered out into the fog-drenched street. Nothing. Just darkness. Just my overactive mind, I told myself. I took deep breaths to calm my racing heart. I decided I had to explore the house more thoroughly. Maybe I could find a way to contact the past, some way to find out why I felt so uneasy. I needed to leave this house knowing I had tried my best to uncover its secrets. I made my way downstairs, stepping carefully to avoid the loud creaks of the floor. I tiptoed into the living room, feeling a tiny thrill of exhilaration mixed with fear. As I glanced around the space, my eyes landed on the bookcase. Perhaps there would be something hidden among the dusty old volumes. I spent what felt like hours flipping through books, searching for anything relevant. Most of them looked like local history or romance novels long past their glory. Just as I was about to give up, I noticed the thin book, its spine barely visible. I pulled it free, feeling the weight of curiosity push down on me. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. The pages were filled with handwritten names and dates. A list of children, all from years ago. Some of them had a missing notice scribbled beside their names. My breath quickened as I scanned the list and recognized some of the names from the photographs on my phone. I felt a heavy ache settle in my chest. I needed to know more. Then the lights flickered, and I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps upstairs. I froze, every hair on my body standing on end. Someone was in the house. I stood frozen in the dim light of the living room, the whispering footsteps sending a chill down my spine. My first instinct was to call out, but my voice caught in my throat. Fear weighed down on me, making it hard to breathe. What if it was just my imagination? But the sound persisted, slow and deliberate, like someone taking their time. I had to know who was up there. My heart raced as I glanced toward the staircase. The shadows at the top felt ominous. I felt torn between the safety of staying put and the need to confront whatever was up there. I crept towards the hallway, careful not to let my footsteps betray me. The wood creaked painfully underfoot as I moved. Reaching the bottom of the stairs, I hesitated, gripping the banister tightly. The glow of the living room light threw strange shapes against the wall, twisting the ordinary into something sinister. "Hello?" I finally managed to rasp. My voice sounded weak even to me. Silence answered, and for a moment I thought perhaps I had imagined it all. Just as I turned to head back to the living room, I heard it again, a shuffle, followed by a low whispering that seemed to carry through the house. It wasn't just my imagination. I lingered at the base of the stairs, my breath shallow, counting the seconds as I willed myself to ascend. The dizzying urge to flee washed over me, but I couldn't turn back now. My instincts screamed to leave, but curiosity dragged me upwards. With each step, I felt the air grow heavier, thick with a tension I couldn't name. I reached the landing and looked around. The hallway stretched before me, bathed in dim light. There were rooms on either side, their doors slightly ajar, shadows lurking just within. Somewhere down the hall, a door creaked open. I held my breath, straining to listen. The footsteps resumed, accompanied by that haunting lullaby from the music box, echoing through the hallway like a memory I couldn't grasp. That's when I noticed the door at the end of the hall. It stood wide open, a dark void that seemed to call out to me. I took cautious steps toward it, my pulse hammering in my ears. As I approached, a cold breeze swirled around me. I shivered, fighting the urge to turn back. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and everything plunged into darkness. Panic clawed at me as I fumbled for the wall, searching for the light switch. Nothing, just the sound of my racing heart and the eerie whispering, now close enough to be right behind me. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows. I barely had time to register the outline before I bolted down the hall. It was a wild sprint as I stumbled over the floorboards, the sound of footsteps in pursuit. I dashed down the stairs and into the living room, where I nearly tripped on the scattered books. I turned back to see the empty hallway, the shadows swallowing whatever had been there. The whispering had gone silent, but I knew I wasn't alone. The unease I'd felt earlier morphed into something darker, something raw. Then I remembered the list, the children, their names, and the warning scrawled next to them. That was no coincidence. I felt a surge of determination. I couldn't let fear win. There had to be a connection, a reason for all of this. But first, I needed to know what had really happened in this house. I glanced back toward the hallway, now still, the door at the end still gaping open. A question burned in my mind. What was waiting for me in the darkness? I took a few deep breaths, willing the adrenaline to settle. My mind raced through possibilities. What did I know about this house? It belonged to my grandmother, who had passed just a few months ago. She had always been the keeper of family secrets and stories. Maybe she had left something behind, something tied to those whispers. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to remember the list of names I'd seen. Each name felt like a thread connecting me to a past I didn't fully understand. Were they real children, or were they part of the folklore surrounding this house? The sensation of needing to know gnawed at me. I steeled myself and decided to return to the hallway, to that open door. I crept back toward the staircase, the floorboards creaking slightly beneath me. My heart pounded, but I focused on the quiet around me. The house felt still, almost contemplative, as if it, too, was waiting. I reached the landing again, the glow of the living room still faint behind me, and looked down the hall. The darkness seemed less intimidating now, a shroud beckoning me rather than threatening me. As I approached the open door, the cold draft intensified. It swirled around my ankles, creeping up my legs. I hesitated, the weight of uncertainty heavy in my chest. Why was that door open? I could have sworn it was closed before. Looking back once more at the abyss behind me, I felt a presence, a consciousness that urged me forward. I stepped inside the room, and it took my eyes a moment to adjust. It was a small bedroom, seemingly untouched since my grandmother lived here. Dust coated the dresser, and the curtains hung limp. But it was the music box on the ancient desk that caught my attention. It was open, the key still rattling from the last turn, playing that haunting lullaby. I moved closer, my curiosity piqued. As I reached for the box, something shifted in the corner of my vision, a movement that felt wrong. I quickly turned, scanning the room, but found nothing. My mind played tricks on me. I couldn't let fear consume me. Focusing on the music box, I noticed a small note wedged beneath it. I pulled it free, my hands trembling. The writing was faded but legible. For those who forget, the past will always return. Panic surged. I didn't want to delve deeper into the family's buried past. Then I heard it again, the whispering. It was right next to me, soft and insistent, wrapping around my words. Help us, help us. I froze, heart racing as the shadows of the room deepened. I wasn't alone. Someone or something was trapped here, and they were waiting for me to unlock the door to their past. Just as I opened my mouth to call out, I felt a sudden chill rush past me. The door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped, surrounded by the darkness. I could hear the faintest echo of laughter, but it wasn't playful. It felt mournful. Panic gripped me. I had stumbled into something far darker than I had anticipated. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice quaking. The laughter turned into a hissing whisper, and the walls seemed to close in around me, pressing against my chest. There was no turning back now. I needed answers. But what if the answers were things I should never have uncovered? I pressed my back against the wall, searching for some kind of escape in the suffocating darkness. The air felt thicker, almost alive, as if it were pushing back against me. "Let me out!" I yelled, the panic rising in my throat as the whispers intensified. They swirled around me, intertwining with the remnants of that eerie lullaby, drowning out my thoughts. I could barely see my hands in front of me, but I knew I had to take control. Maybe I could pry open the door, find a way back to the safety of the hallway. Steeling myself, I took a step toward the door. It wasn't locked.
It was as if it simply didn't want me to leave. I grasped the doorknob, and to my surprise, it turned easily. But the door remained immovable, stuck by some unseen force. "Help us! Help us!" The voices were clearer now, and chills raced down my spine. Who were these spirits? Why did they need my help? With a shaky breath, I backed away, desperate to put some space between me and the unseen presence. My heart thudded in my chest, drowning out the whispers for a brief moment. Then I noticed the music box. The notes of the lullaby changed, a strange, almost mournful cry as I returned my gaze to it. Something about the way it played made me shiver. I stepped closer, unable to shake the feeling that it held the key to my predicament. Suddenly, a memory flickered in my mind, something my grandma
Had mentioned once about the music box. She'd said it belonged to my great aunt, a child who had vanished one summer when the woods were thick with shadows. My stomach twisted at the thought. Was this connected? The whispers grew louder, as if urging me to listen carefully, to piece together the story that had been left untold. Find us, remember. The tone was desperate now, filling the corners of the room and pressing against my ears. I looked around the bedroom, searching for anything that could give me more clues. There were old photographs lining the wall, some blurred and yellowed with age. With shaking hands, I reached for one, my breath hitching. It depicted a group of children playing in a field, all smiles, except for one, a girl with deep-set eyes fixated on the camera. She looked eerily familiar. I took a step back, the room spinning around me. That child was my great aunt. This was not just a forgotten past. It was a legacy begging to be uncovered. But at what cost? Just then, the floor creaked again. A sound echoed outside the door, a low thump that jolted me back to my surroundings. I wasn't alone. Someone or something was on the other side. The whispers faded into silence, and in that quiet, I heard a soft, deliberate knock. My breath caught in my throat, the sense of dread washing over me again. Whatever was waiting out there had been listening. I stood frozen, torn between the urgency of the whispers and the fear of whatever lurked outside. That's when I saw it, a shadow moving beneath the crack of the door, darting back and forth like something alive. I steeled myself, realizing I couldn't hide anymore. Answers awaited me, and I had to decide if I was ready to face them. I took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage I had left. The knock came again, louder this time, more insistent. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence answered me, thick and heavy. I pressed my ear against the cool wood of the door, trying to listen. The faint rustling continued, but it was different now, more rhythmic. I couldn't tell if it was coming from outside or if the shadows themselves were stirring. I stepped back again, feeling the unease creep back in. That's when I noticed something glinting in the low light. It was a small, metallic object lying just inside the room, half hidden under the edge of the bed. I hesitated for a moment, standing between the door and whatever lay beneath the bed. Curiosity wrestled with my fear, and I found myself moving forward, drawn to the object. I crouched down, heart racing, and reached for it. The cool surface was smooth against my fingertips, and I lifted it into the dim light. A locket. It was surprisingly ornate, carved with delicate designs that shimmered even in the dark. I flipped it open, revealing a faded photograph inside. Another child. This one had a mischievous grin, but something about the eyes felt hauntingly familiar. "Help us! Remember!" The whispers returned, swirling around me as I held the locket. This was more than just a keepsake. It felt like a bridge to the past. My great aunt had been part of something deeply rooted in this house, and I was somehow entwined in it all. The locket slipped from my fingers, falling to the floor with a soft thud.
Panic surged within me. The atmosphere thickened and the whispering grew frantic. I could hear the distinct pattern of voices rising and falling, almost like a chant. "She is here. She will find us." Clenching my teeth, I moved back to the door, gripping the doorknob again. "What do you want? Who are you?" My voice was loud now, cutting through the oppressive air. I had to confront whatever was outside. Suddenly, the shadow under the door jerked again, and this time I could hear it. Soft scratches on the other side, almost desperate. It was like something was clawing, trying to get in. My mind raced with thoughts of what lay beyond. Could it be my great aunt? Something much worse. My determination flared. I had been drawn into this mystery, and there was no turning back. I needed answers. I twisted the doorknob and shoved the door open with all my strength. What I saw on the other side made my blood run cold. A figure stood in the hallway, cloaked in darkness, with eyes that seemed to glow. A chill swept through me as I confronted it. This was not a ghost. It was something else entirely. I felt the weight of the locket in my pocket as I stood rooted to the spot. Whatever connection I had with the past was about to play out in the present. I couldn't back down now. I took a step forward, ready to face the unknown. The figure remained silent, a dark silhouette that seemed to bend the light around it. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. My instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. Something inside held me suspended between fear and curiosity. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, the words coming out barely above a whisper. The figure shifted, and in that moment I felt the air thicken, as if each breath weighed heavy with anticipation. It stepped closer, and with each footfall I caught glimpses of its form. An old-fashioned dress, tattered at the edges, and hair that framed a face obscured in shadow. I was running multiple scenarios in my mind, each scarier than the last. Was this some kind of curse? A lingering spirit from my great-aunt's past? I'm here to help," I tried, though my voice wavered. "I want to know what happened." The figure stopped suddenly, and for an agonizing moment, everything was still. Then it pointed down the hallway, its finger a thin, pale line contrasting against the darkness. I followed the gesture with my eyes. There was a door at the end of the hall that I hadn't noticed before, slightly ajar, with a light flickering inside. The whispers returned, more urgent now. "Follow, find." They were insistent, no longer a chorus of voices, but singular, almost pleading. Panic twisted in my gut. What were they leading me to? Was this even a choice I was allowed to make? The figure watched me intently, its glowing eyes fixed on my face. I couldn't tell if it was waiting for me to take a step or whether it was hoping I wouldn't. My heart pounded louder in my ears, drowning out the whispers. Likewise the scratches that still resonated from outside the door. I could feel the presence of whatever waited beyond the darkness. My great-aunt, perhaps? I took a step back, willing courage into my reluctant limbs. If I didn't act now, I felt I might lose the opportunity to confront this mystery. But then an unsettling thought crossed my mind. What if this thing meant to harm me? As if reading my thoughts, the figure took a step forward. My fight-or-flight instinct kicked in. I backed up quickly, nearly stumbling over the edge of the rug on the floor. "No, stay back." Then it vanished. The figure dissolved into the shadows, leaving me alone in a silence that threatened to swallow me whole. For a split second, I felt relieved. But then dread filled the void. Where had it gone? What did that mean? That's when I heard a soft creaking sound coming from the door at the end of the hallway. It was opening wider. A glowing light spilled out, illuminating the dark space around me. Encouraged by instincts I couldn't resist, I stepped forward again, compelled by an invisible force. Each step felt weighed, the air thickening around me. I reached the threshold, heart racing, and inched the door open. Inside, I was met with a room that seemed frozen in time.
Old photographs adorned the walls, capturing faces I didn't recognize, but one stood out. A girl with a similar smile to the one in the locket. Before I could fully process what I saw, the door slammed shut behind me, plunging me into darkness once more. Panic surged through me again. I was trapped. But before the fear could drown out my thoughts, I heard it. The whispering returned, now blending seamlessly with a loud, piercing cry echoing from behind. Something was about to be unleashed. I had to find out what it was, and time was running out. The darkness pressed against me, clinging like a heavy mist. I turned, hands fumbling for the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. I was sealed in. The faint light from the room didn't penetrate the corners where shadows twisted and danced, and I felt an overwhelming surge of claustrophobia. "Hello?" My voice broke through the silence, barely audible. No answer came, just another scuttling breath of
whispers mingling with the echoing cry. I needed to find a way out. Panic coursed through my veins, but I forced myself to breathe. I focused on the photographs lining the walls, feeling drawn to them. Were they connected to the figure, my great aunt? I stepped closer, squinting at the faces, trying to connect names to the lineage I barely knew. Most were strangers, but one photograph caught my eye again. It was of a girl, maybe around my age, her bright smile striking against the somber backdrop. I reached out, a strange urge pulling me to touch the frame. As my fingers brushed against the glass, a shudder rippled through the air. The moment I made contact, the photo seemed to whisper secrets to me, stories long hidden. In an instant, I felt connected to that girl, her sorrow, her joy. But then the whispers intensified, louder now, urging me to listen. Find her, find the truth. Suddenly, another sound broke the spell, a loud bang reverberating through the hall beyond the door. My heart raced. I turned back to the door, my breath quickening. What was out there? Was it the figure or something worse? Before I could gather my thoughts, the door rattled and I stumbled backward. The whispers surged, entwining my mind with their urgency. Trust the light. They shifted from frantic chaos to calming echoes, urging me toward that glowing certainty. I looked back at the girl in the photograph. What am I supposed to find? What happened to you? The question spilled out, desperate for answers. But instead of an answer, there was movement. The shadows in the room shifted, coalescing into a darker smudge at the edge. I squinted, my breath catching. Something was emerging, a silhouette forming against the light. And then it happened. I could hardly comprehend the fear when I realized the figure that stepped out of the shadow was not the dark silhouette I encountered before. This one wore a look of anguish, a twisted expression that sank deep into unspoken pain. It felt like an echo of the girl, the one from the photo. "No, don't!" I shouted, instinctively taking another step back, but knowing I had nowhere to go. My body trembled, my skin prickled. The whispers escalated into a cacophony of urgency. "Help her! Help us!" The voices melded together, their tone desperate, almost pleading. The figure reached toward me, and instinct kicked in again. I turned and ran to the other side of the room. I had to escape, had to get out. I needed air. But as I stumbled into the wall, I felt something shift. The floor beneath me gave way to a softness that wasn't carpet or padding. I looked down and realized it was soil. Earth, dark and moist, rising up to my ankles. Fear licked at the edges of my mind. I glanced back. The figure stood unmoving now, its expression unreadable, yet powerful. Help, it mouthed.
My mind, something was rising behind me. That's when I saw it, a dark silhouette lurching from the shadows, wild and uncontrolled. Whatever was waiting, it was approaching fast, and I knew I couldn't stay. I had to decide, fight or flee. Either way, the truth was about to surface. I couldn't think straight as I weighed my options. The figure, with its haunting plea, lingered in my thoughts, urging me to connect. But behind me, the dark shape was closer now, a shadow that seemed to swallow the feeble light in the room. I didn't dare turn around. Instinctively, I moved toward the door again, feeling along the edges for any escape. But the whispers grew more frantic, echoing the urgent warning in my brain. Trust the light. What light? I squinted into the shadows, desperate to find a source. Then I spotted it, what looked like a soft glow emanating from a crack in the wall. It flickered, beckoning to me like a distant star, and I felt an inexplicable pull toward it. But just as I started moving, the dark silhouette lunged. Panic surged through me. I was running out of time. I darted away from the door, risking a hurried glance back. The figure was impossibly close, rippling with an energy that sent icy fingers down my spine. I stumbled backward, nearly losing my balance in the soil that now clung to my feet like a prisoner holding me down. "Look!" The words burst from my lips, a plea to the girl in the photo. "I need to know what's happening." As if in response, the figure shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. I could see remnants of tears streaming down its face, twisting my heart into knots. There was something here, something anchoring both her and me, and with each desperate breath, I felt the connection deepen. "Trust the light," I shouted, this time louder, as if saying it could somehow summon the courage I needed. The whispers filled the gaps between words, crescendoing in urgency. I turned back to the glowing crack, instinct guiding my steps. It felt like a lifeline, something tangible amidst the chaos. I approached the wall, my heart hammering, and pressed my palm against the cool surface. The moment I did, the glow brightened, illuminating the room with warm golden light that pushed back the darkness. The silhouette paused, caught off guard. For a fleeting moment, I felt courage wash over me, a clear path ahead. Through the crack, I saw images flicker. Flashes of the girl laughing with friends, a family picnic, shadows of figures dancing in sepia tones. I reached for it, wanting to dive deeper into that warm light, to find out who she had been, what had happened to her. But then the dark form surged forward again, this time with an intensity that knocked the breath from my lungs. I gasped, stumbling back as panic clawed at my mind. "Help me!" the anguished figure shrieked, the voice echoing inside my head. I confronted by both the light and the shadow. The girl's face filled my thoughts, a blend of sorrow and strength. If I failed now, if I turned away, what would happen to her, to me? Desperation surged, and a determination I didn't know I had sparked into motion. With a swift movement, I reached for the crack, hoping to pull the light fully into my grasp. But in doing so, I felt the soil begin to shift again, the ground trembling beneath my feet. Then everything went dark. And just like that, I was plunged into an abyss of silence and shadows. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the floor of the living room, the dust swirling around me in the shafts of sunlight streaming through the cracked window. My heart pounded heavily against my ribs as I sat up, disoriented. The comforting hum of the ocean wasn't there. It was merely quiet. No whispers, no figures, just the stillness of the empty room. At first, I thought it all had been a dream, a nightmare born of some strange tension in the house. But the locket was clenched in my fist, its cool surface grounding me in reality. My fingers brushed over its edge, remembering the images of that girl, visions of lost time.
Whatever had happened, I had somehow returned to a more mundane world. I pulled myself up, shaky but determined. This house still held secrets, and I knew I couldn't leave without uncovering more. I glanced around, taking in the silence that felt both heavy and liberating. The music box sat untouched on the desk where I had last seen it. It felt like some crucial piece of my experience had forged a connection within me, and I had to explore its meaning. I made my way back to the attic, where the echoes of the past lingered like wisps of smoke. The atmosphere was different now, less oppressive, yet charged with the remnants of something profound. I rummaged through the boxes, pulling out old belongings, worn photographs, faded letters, piecing together a puzzle of lives long lost. A sense of purpose washed over me. I discovered a journal tucked beneath a moldy quilt. Flipping through the pages, I uncovered awe-filled accounts of summers spent playing near the beach, long-forgotten names inscribed in elegant cursive. The children from the photographs were here, alive and laughing in ink. Brief moments captured before tragedy swirled into their lives, leaving behind only echoes. As I sifted through the memories, I stumbled upon a scrap of paper tucked into the journal. It was a letter of warning, a narrative of a child's disappearance. The author penned a desperate plea for anyone who may come across the misplaced names, recounting a tale of shadows that hid in ordinary places. My heart sank. It was a story of loss and longing, of souls yearning to be heard. Was the girl in my dreams tied to this darkness? Maybe she had once played.
Right here in the house, her laughter now fading within its walls. The connections felt tenuous yet profound. I couldn't help but draw parallels. My own fears echoed the family's grief. As I descended back to the living room, everything felt different, as if the house was on the brink of revealing something deeper. While sunlight dried the morning dew, I felt a weight pressing down on me, the weight of unfinished stories. Then, as I stood lost in thought, the doors swung open. Through the frame, I saw fog rolling in from the ocean, thick and swirling. An unsettling familiarity crept over me. The quiet tug back toward the world outside beckoned, a reminder of my own story yet untold. And as I walked outside, leaving behind the Victorian secrets, I caught one last glimpse of the music box, lid half open, the tune of the lullaby faintly playing, as if echoing a farewell. I glanced back, something in me still yearning to understand. But there was no going back to find more answers, not yet. The presence I felt lingered in the air, heavy with unfulfilled promises. With that lingering unease, I stepped into the coastal breeze, unsure of where my renewed journey would lead me. The cries for help would reverberate in my thoughts, entwining my fate with theirs forever. There would always be questions left unanswered, and perhaps some stories were meant to remain in the shadows. The line between past and present blurred, and while I had escaped the house, its pieces of history would follow me, haunting yet strangely comforting. The weight of it all settled in my chest as I walked away, feeling the echoes of laughter and sorrow dance in the wind. I couldn't help but believe those whispers still roamed through the house, hoping someone would one day find the truth woven into the fabric of their lives.